Welcome to Confess and Chill. This is where the truth finally crawls out of the dark, where the stories people bury, the ones they swore they'd never tell, get a voice. These aren't polished, they're real, raw, sometimes painful. Sometimes straight up chaotic, and sometimes a little too honest for comfort. What you'll hear tonight isn't just drama, it's emotion stripped down to the bone. My subscribers sent me their confessions, their regrets, their secrets, their breaking points. And now we're going to open them up, piece by piece, together, because once it's out there, you can't take it back. All right, we're now going to read the first story. It's called I Told My Husband I Miss My Ex. Yeah, you can already feel the chaos brewing, right? So, ever said something you didn't mean to say, but the moment it slipped out, it hit a little too close to the truth? Yeah, this one's exactly that. We were folding laundry. Romantic, I know, just one of those quiet evenings where everything feels fine, normal, even. I was rambling about this old song from college, feeling all nostalgic, and before I even realized what was happening, it just came out. I miss my ex, yeah, I actually said it, out loud, like a glass breaking in a silent room. He froze, didn't yell, didn't even move, just kept folding the laundry. And somehow, that calm hurt more than any anger ever could. He picked up a pair of socks, folded them carefully, like he was trying to hold something fragile. Even the air got thick, heavy. You ever say something so wrong that time just stops? Yeah, that was the moment. Later that night, I realized something. I didn't actually miss him. I missed me. The me who wasn't exhausted all the time, who didn't have to plan happiness, who felt wanted without effort. But that's not what I said. I said a name. And that changes everything. The confrontation came quietly, a whisper fight in the kitchen. He asked if I'd been talking to my ex. I said no. Then he asked if I wanted to. And the silence that followed, that was my real confession. Because the truth was I didn't know. He looked at me and said, "I'm your husband. I shouldn't have to compete with a ghost." Man, that line, it hit. That night he slept in our bed. I didn't. I laid on the couch listening to the fridge hum and that guilt buzzing in my chest like a mosquito that just won't quit. The next morning I wrote him a letter, not about my ex, about us, about the life we didn't build. The trips we kept postponing, the kids we're not sure we even want, all the little distances that turned into miles. He read it. We went for a walk, we booked a therapy session, and now I still miss that version of me. But instead of digging through the past, I'm trying to rebuild her here, inside the life I already have. So tell me, was I the villain for saying the quiet part out loud, or was it the first honest thing I've said in months? What would you have done? Let me know in the comments below. So, we're now going to read the second story. It's called My Work Wife Became My Emotional Affair. They say emotional cheating doesn't count until it does. And trust me, this one started as a harmless office joke and ended as quiet heartbreak. Let's talk about the moment my work wife became something way more than that. I used to joke that my work wife knew me better than my actual wife. Funny, right, except jokes are just confessions wearing a disguise. It started small. My phone would light up with her messages and my chest would warm, not in a romantic way. Not yet, just that feeling of being seen. She remembered the little things. The name of the bar where my dad told me he was leaving. That I hate wet sleeves when I wash dishes. Things I barely tell anyone. My wife knows those things too, but hearing them from someone new, it felt intoxicating. Like seeing your reflection in a cleaner mirror. Then came the confrontation, a random Tuesday. I was smiling at my phone and frowning at the sink. My wife noticed. She asked, "Who are you talking to?" I said, "Just a coworker." Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Is there anything you'd be ashamed for me to read?" That cut deep, not like a stab, like a scalpel, precise, quiet. Later that night I reread every message. Nothing flirty, no late night I miss yous, no hearts. No jokes that crossed the line, but I saw it plain as day. I'd handed her something sacred, my loneliness, my need to be noticed. That's intimacy. That's betrayal dressed in business casual. The aftermath was messy but honest. I told my coworker we needed boundaries. I told my wife I didn't realize how starved I was for someone to ask about me like that. She looked wrecked, and then she said something I'll never forget. "You could have asked me to ask. God, that one hurt." We called it what it was, an emotional affair. The words felt too big and exactly right. I blocked my coworker outside of work chats. And my wife and I started something new, a nightly ritual, 2 facts and a feeling. Yeah, it sounds cheesy, but it's keeping us alive, like plugging a dying phone back into the charger. I'm ashamed I confused novelty with care. But grateful my wife didn't walk away when she could have. So, would you have? Was I the villain for falling in love with the echo of my own need? What would you have done? Drop your thoughts in the comment. Alright, we're now going to read the next story. It's called I Found My Fiancé's Future Plans folder and I wasn't in it. Ever stumble on something you weren't supposed to see, and it changes everything. This isn't about catching someone cheating. It's about finding proof that they were quietly building a future without you in it. And once you see that kind of truth, you can't unsee it. I wasn't snooping. Seriously, I swear I wasn't. We were just merging files before moving in together. Cute, right? Two people combining their lives into one neat little folder. Then I saw it. A folder named Future Plans. I thought, oh, that's sweet. Maybe it's budgets, vacations, goals, adulting stuff. But inside, there was another document, titled If I Go Solo. That's when the air left the room. It had timelines. Cost of living spreadsheets for cities I'd never even been to. A section called Clean Break Logistics. Yeah, that's what it said. The discovery didn't just sting, it burned. It tasted metallic like copper in my mouth. He'd made pros and cons lists, and under cons was my name, just a bullet point labeled constraint. I wasn't a person in that file. I was an equation, something to be managed, not loved. When I confronted him, it wasn't a fight, it was an implosion. Quiet, controlled, like a slow-motion car crash you can't stop watching. I asked what it was. He said, contingency planning. He's an engineer, said he plans for failure modes. So I asked, am I failure mode? He said no, but he couldn't meet my eyes, and that silence was an answer. The aftermath was a blur of tears, logic, and fear. He said, I don't know how to need someone without a backup plan. And that's when it hit me. I don't know how to love someone who keeps an exit map taped under the table. We paused the engagement, not a breakup, not yet, just a hand hovering over the switch, one flick away from darkness. He offered to delete the folder, but that felt like burning evidence instead of facing the crime. So we made a new one together called Shared Plans. We wrote everything down, kids, conflict, my mom's health, moving, even how we'd handle silence. It was hopeful. But sometimes when he goes quiet too long, I still think about that other file. Clean Break Logistics, and I wonder how brave or how broken you have to be to love someone while keeping one hand on the door handle. So tell me, would you marry someone who keeps an emergency exit blueprint? Or am I just pretending not to see the neon warning sign blinking in front of me? You know what's wild? Some people build their escape routes before they even settle in. They want love, but only if there's a fire exit clearly marked and easy to reach. And I get it, fear does that, but love isn't supposed to be a risk assessment. You don't calculate intimacy like it's a spreadsheet. Still, I can't hate the guy. It takes a special kind of broken to plan your loneliness in advance, and maybe an even braver kind of broken to stay and try again. So what would you have done? Walk away or rewrite the plan? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Alright, we're now going to read the next story. It's called My Stepbrother and I Crossed a Line We Can't Uncross. It started as teasing, the kind of playful banter that always had a little spark underneath it, something unspoken. We've been step-siblings for 5 years, ever since our parents got married while we were in college. We never lived together full-time, just summers and holidays. We were friends long before our parents even met, and maybe that's what made everything so complicated. Because even before the wedding, there was always something quietly there. The night it happened wasn't dramatic, just a movie marathon, a shared blanket, and one of those soft moments where laughter fades and silence lingers too long. Our hands brushed, and for a second, neither of us moved. No big scene, no grand gesture, just a feeling heavy, electric, wrong, and real. A moment that shouldn't have happened, but did. I told myself it didn't mean anything. That it was just confusion, a lapse in judgment, but then he sent a message that changed everything. We can't keep pretending we don't feel this. That's when it hit me. He wasn't ashamed, but I was. We promised not to tell anyone, especially our parents. We said we'd move on, that it would never happen again. But moving on isn't simple when you share a family dinner table. Now, every time we're together, I feel the weight of it. Like we're both pretending in a scene that everyone else thinks is normal. We talk, we laugh, and every word feels like it's balancing on top of something fragile. He's dating someone new now. I should feel relieved, but instead I feel something I don't want to name. Jealousy maybe, or the ache of something unresolved. Either way, it's ugly. I found myself scrolling through his girlfriend's social media one night, searching for proof that he's moved on. And that's when I realized how deep the damage goes. I'm not his ex, but I'm not just his sister either. We exist in this gray space no one talks about, where guilt and memory quietly coexist. I know what happened can't be erased, but I also know silence sometimes feels like the only way to protect everyone. So now, every time we say goodbye, I wonder if he feels it too, that tiny fracture in something that used to be innocent. So tell me, would you confess something that could break your family apart? Or would you let the secret live quietly, where no one ever looks? Some stories aren't about villains or victims, just people who took a wrong step and can't find their way back. This isn't about scandal, it's about regret, about what happens when the heart crosses boundaries the head can't defend. You can love someone deeply and still know you can't ever act on it again. That's the kind of lesson no one prepares you for. So what would you have done? Tell me in the comments, and remember, this is Confess and Chill. We're now going to read the next story. It's called I Still Sleep with My Ex-Wife Sometimes. We divorced 2 years ago, mostly amicably. No kids, no scandal, just exhaustion. We loved each other, we just couldn't keep up with the constant disappointment of trying. Therapy didn't fix it, space didn't fix it. All the finding ourselves talk, it just turned into a polite funeral for something that used to be alive. Then one night she dropped off a box of my old books. We opened a bottle of wine, started laughing about our failed sourdough phase, back when everyone thought they could bake their way through heartbreak. And the laughter turned into that long, familiar look, the kind that only happens when someone's seen every version of you and still knows how you take your coffee. One thing led to another. It wasn't wild or passionate. It was quiet, familiar. Like revisiting an old home that doesn't belong to you anymore, but the key still fits. Weeks later, she texted me. "We need to stop." I agreed. And then, the next month, she came over again. It's been happening on and off since. No labels, no promises. We keep calling it closure. But it's not closure, it's comfort. It's the emotional equivalent of drinking from a glass with a crack. Every time a little more leaks out. Then she started seeing someone new. I told her I was happy for her. I even sounded like I meant it, but I wasn't. That's when I realized I hadn't been loving her. I'd been hiding inside her absence. She was my safe place, even after the foundation had already fallen apart. She looked at me one night and said, "You don't love me, you just hate being without me." And she was right. That line still echoes in my head like a closing door. Now she's really moving on. I see her smiling on social media with him, and it hits me in this strange mix of pride and panic. Because she deserves better than being someone's halfway home. So here's my confession. I still have her contact saved under home. And every time my phone lights up, I still feel that little jolt of comfort. I don't know if I'll ever change it. Would you? Some people think divorce ends love. It doesn't, it just teaches you how many shapes love can take before it fades. This isn't about lust or drama. It's about how comfort becomes a habit and how hard it is to let go of the one person who feels like home, even after you've both moved out. You can stop being married and still be tangled in the history of who you were together. That's the cruel part. Love doesn't sign the same papers you do. So what about you? Would you keep that number under home? Or would you finally delete the last reminder of what used to be? You've just listened to confessions, hearts trying to make sense of what they broke or what broke them. Maybe you judged, maybe you related, or maybe you just felt that quiet ache, the one that hits when you realize we're all just trying to figure it out. Love, regret, guilt, growth, they sound like different stories, don't they? But really, they're just different verses of the same song. If one of these confessions stayed with you tonight, tell me which one, and why. Because sometimes talking about it is the first step toward forgiving yourself. I'm glad you stayed till the end. This was Confess and Chill, where the quietest stories speak the loudest.